Hi guys, this is Mark. In this video, I will talk about the bulk delete API. This is an API that gives you an ability to delete multiple objects from a table in the backendless database. The way this API works is you identify a table where the objects will be deleted, and to identify multiple objects, you use a where clause, and you already know about the where clause. We talked about it in a lecture in this course. So once you specify that where clause, any object that satisfies the conditions of the where clause that you specify becomes a candidate for deletion. So backendless will run a query, identify and find all the objects that match that where clause, and then will delete them at once. I will demonstrate how it works in backendless console using REST console, and then we will do an example in UI Builder that will be very visual, and there will be some techniques that you would learn of how to do it in UI Builder. So here for this example, I will use this to-do list. This is a table that we created in a lecture earlier, and here we will just go with something simple. And as far as the where clause, it's everything that backendless supports as far as where clause would work for bulk delete API. But for the simplicity's sake, let's just keep it something that would be easy to understand from the perspective of seeing how that API works. So here I have a table called to-do list, and one of the columns in this table is called is done. So let's say we want to delete all the records where is done equals true, and use bulk delete API for this. So for this, I will switch to REST console, and in here, let me clear out this. So in here, the where clause would look like this: is done equals true. By the way, we can just click the get and see these are the objects that match this query, and you don't need to click get. This is just to demonstrate what objects will be deleted. And then to perform the bulk delete operation, select this bulk operation, and then when you click delete, this where clause will be sent to the server. In fact, let me open up the inspect panel and with the network. So once you click delete, request was sent to the server. Here's this request. As you can see in the URL, it specifies bulk in the endpoint, indicating that this is a bulk operation. Then we have the table name, and this is the where clause that is URL encoded that instructs backend server to find all the objects matching that query, and those objects are going to be deleted. And then in the response, this is the response, you get a number that indicates how many objects were actually deleted by that bulk delete request. By the way, if the where clause is not there, and you do the bulk operation and send the delete request, it will delete all objects in the table. So this is something that you need to keep in mind as you are testing in your application, that if there is no where clause, everything in the table will be gone. If we go back to, let me close this, if we go back to data browser, then now we have only 3 records remaining, and everything that is done is now deleted. Let's take a look at how you would use this API in UI Builder with Codeless. And for this, let's switch to front end. And in here, let's create a new page. And this page will be created from a template that is in the marketplace. So move the mouse pointer over here and click new page. Make sure to select marketplace. And you will need to find this template, 28 bulk delete API. Let's give it a name, bulk delete, and click the create button. If you have followed this series of lectures right from the beginning, specifically from the point when we imported test data, then this page will work out of the box. And if you haven't done that, I would recommend going back. I think it is lecture 14th, if I'm not mistaken, but make sure it is the lecture where the data is imported from a zip file, and then it populates the database. So in this case, you will have the backend ready with all the data in there. I'm going to run this page first, and then we'll take a look at the logic behind the page just to see how it works. So for this, I'm going to click the preview button, and it retrieves all the data. Here in the upper right corner, it will tell you how many objects are selected to be deleted, and then we can just start selecting these checkboxes. And as you can see, as I click these checkboxes, it summarizes how many objects will be deleted. Okay, so now we have 6 objects to delete. Click the actually, before I do this, let me open up the inspect window so you can actually see how the request is structured, because it's going to be a little bit different. Still a where clause, but a different type of where clause than what I have demonstrated earlier. So click delete, a request went out, all the records are deleted, and we're back to 0 right here. Let's take a look at the actual delete request. So here in the endpoint URL, it is delete, and then in the payload we do have this where clause. So this where clause looks like this. So here's where. Actually, let me view parsed. It's going to be better. So this is the where clause, and completely legitimate where clause. We actually talked about using the in operator in where clause, and the way this works is it says object ID, which is a property that is assigned to every single object in, and then we enumerate all the object IDs of the objects to be deleted. So what this does is basically says all the objects where the object ID is one of these, delete them. And that is perfectly valid scenario. The reason I did it this way is because when you select individual objects with checkboxes, we know object IDs of the individual records that need to be deleted. And then with some logic in the page, we compose this where clause, send it to the server, and these objects are being deleted. So that's how it works. And let's take a look at the logic on this page. All the logic is going to be, well, there is a logic that retrieves data, and then if you're following the lectures, you already saw that. However, the bulk delete operation will be for this delete button. So click the button and navigate to the logic here. And then in the onClick event, this is where all that stuff is happening. So this is the actual event. These are just additional functions that were created. So in here, what we do is we use this bulk delete block, and then the bulk delete block is located in the data API. Scroll all the way to the bottom, well, almost all the way to the bottom, you will see this bulk delete. This is the block. And in here, there are two connectors. One is the table name. This is the table where the objects are going to be deleted. And there is where clause. So to build the where clause, I created this function right here. It's called build where clause. This is the guy. And in this function, oops, let me just zoom out a little bit. In this function, I'm actually going through and composing that where clause. And I'm not going to go into the details here. What we know is that once this where clause is built, it's going to be exactly the where clause that I just demonstrated, where object ID in, and then we create a list of individual object IDs. So that's how the bulk deletion happens. And then after that, there is this function remove deleted items in UI. This is the function. And in here, we do some additional logic just to remove the objects that were deleted from the UI, so we don't have to fetch the data again from the server. This is it. The core of this lecture is actually this block. So that's what I try to focus on. This is it. Again, single block that does a lot, and a very valuable function for a number of applications where you need to delete multiple objects at once. I do hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching. And as always, happy coding.